Wind lashes the harbor at Sinop. Torches hiss and spit along the quay. Ships creak at their moorings while oars lie stacked like spears on the decks. Mithridates stands at the edge where stone meets sea, cloak lifted by spray, eyes fixed on the dark path of water that leads west. Messengers have ridden through the night. They bring the same report in many hands. Roman sails multiply on the horizon. Roman coin hires new pilots. Roman orders speak in every port. He lets the news settle like ash, then raises his hand. The courtyard falls quiet. Close the western gates. Chain the harbor. Rouse the mariners in the lower wards. Call the captains to the table. Words move like arrows from mouth to mouth. This is not panic. This is a memory at work. He has watched Rome cut borders like cloth and stitch provinces from the pieces. He has learned what weight their legions carry and how long their anger holds. Yet he also remembers the nights when his riders rode faster than couriers, when his fleet slipped out under fog, when his allies opened iron doors from the inside. The wind smells of pitch, salt, and hot iron. He tastes it and makes the old decision again. He will not yield. Not to taxes signed by men who never walked these streets, not to judges who sell verdicts before trials, not to an eagle raised above a city that does not bow. Tonight he writes orders. Tomorrow he will take to the sea. He is not raised in gentleness. A father dies after a feast, and the rumor of poison settles on every cup that follows. Smiles shorten in doorways. Servants learn to speak without moving their lips. His mother takes the ring of authority and calls it duty. The boy vanishes into the high country where the pines keep their own counsel. Winters teach him thrift and the names of winds. He reads tracks in crusted snow and drinks from streams that numb the tongue. At night he repeats words from traders and herdsmen until his ear hears the shift between tongues. He rides among Scythians and learns to strike from a gallop. He chews bitter seeds and swallows infusions that could kill a grown man twice his size. Sickness comes and goes. The habit does not. Fear loses its grip. When he returns, he does not creep. He walks straight through the doors that were closed to him and seats himself where he was not invited. Guards look at other guards. Nobles look to the floor. The ring comes back to his hand. The list of concessions burns. He speaks little and acts often. Mothers who prayed for peace blessed him. Men who profited from peace begin to count exits. He remembers every track that leads away from the capital and every ridge that hides an ambush. He will use both. Rome advances like winter water under a door. It chills rooms and stiffens hands before anyone admits the season has changed. The order is simple, and it is sealed in oil and carried at night. On the appointed day, no Roman or Italian in the province is to live. Gates will close, docks will clear, knives will be quick, debts will die with their holders, and lawsuits will evaporate in the dark. In Ephesus, men run to the sea and are driven back into it with pikes. In Pergamon, servants lift their eyes and do not set the cups down gently. On roads between towns, riders pass one another without greeting because the words in their mouths do not bear witnesses. At dawn, the cities hear themselves. The shouting ends, and what follows is quieter. Smoke hangs above courtyards where ledgers blacken. The count is not certain because no one agrees to count the same way. Tens of thousands is the number that sits heavy and stays. The king does not pretend sorrow in public. He holds court and he speaks about the weight of Roman taxes and the old rights of allies. He names the names of governors whose corruption was as tall as towers. He says he has cut the bond that strangled the East. Men cheer because they want to believe the cut will heal. Women listen and keep their faces still. Rome hears and does not keep still at all. Messages ride on every road toward the west. Coins are counted in the Senate and found insulted. Veterans are recalled from farms. Temples in Italy are filled with vows for vengeance. The mapmakers sharpen their ink and the generals sharpen their plans. War redraws habits before it redraws borders. Sulla sails into Greece and finds cities that would rather argue than fight. He brings ladders, engines, and letters that promise gentler taxes if gates open now and ruin if they wait until morning. The king answers with marches that seem to steal days from the calendar. Columns appear where scouts swore the passes were snowed in. Mounted archers bite at baggage trains and vanish when legions turn. Bridges burn and are rebuilt somewhere else by dawn. At Chaeronea, the air fills with dust and oath smoke. The Pontic line bends and then breaks under shields that move like one body. Sulla does not waste triumph on statues. He moves to the next city and the next. He writes peace terms with a knife pressed into the wax. The king keeps his throne and loses his claims. He rifles his own memory for the mistake and finds not one error but many small costs. He learns the price of taking a city that will not hold, of trusting councils that fear tomorrow more than today, of fighting set battles against men who turn discipline into a second weapon. He returns to his ports and counts ships. He walks his arsenals and counts spearheads. He waits and he listens for Rome to quarrel with itself because it always does. Years teach what days hide. He rebuilds quays, deepens channels, and moves timber yards closer to forges. He hires smiths who argue about the temper of iron until the blades gleam the way he remembers. He drills levees on the beach and stubbles. He buys the loyalty of pirates for a season and then pays fishermen to swear they have never seen them. He writes to cities with praise that sounds like command. Lucullus comes with tidy camps and account books that balance at spear point. The king refuses to be weighed on that scale. He moves along ridgelines where wagons cannot follow. He starves columns and waters horses where maps promise no wells. When he must fight, he fights where sun blinds one army and wind blinds the other, and his men know which way to turn. Victories come and then slip because the ground under them will not hold. He looks for firm ground in Armenia where kinship lives and finds that kinship bleeds on its own frontiers. Lucullus loses patience and then loses favor. Rome replaces him and calls the change order. The king reads the signal and pushes again at coasts that grow careless. He sends small squadrons to harry grain ships and to scatter convoys that thought the season safe. He knows raids will not win a war, but they will keep memory awake in cities that risk forgetting the price of Roman peace. He cannot match Rome coin for coin or man for man. He can match it in nerve and in the patience to wound without cheering too soon. Pompey arrives with a map that does not leave room for luck. He does not hurry. He closes roads first, then harbors, then rumors. He writes to kings who still pretend not to hear Rome, and he names prices that silence pride. He does not chase battles across plains. He trails the king with taxes denied, with letters that turn captains into pensioners, with pardons that make betrayal a bargain. Across the winter, the circle tightens. Cities that cheered turn careful. Priests count offerings and decide the gods like stability. Merchants remember the color of Roman coin and the speed with which it returns. Grain stores open for the army that promises to pay on time. The king still strikes where lines are thin, still rips tents from stakes in moonlight and scatters mules on cliff paths. But every raid costs horses and men he cannot replace. Each victory returns with fewer banners than it carried. The hills that once hid allies now hide listeners. The sea that once offered exits grows crowded with foreign pilots who prefer Latin orders. The war that began with a single command now answers to a patient siege on every front of his life. He feels it in the way courtiers pause before speaking, in the way scouts give ranges instead of routes, in the way letters arrive opened and then tied shut again by clumsy hands. He knows a net when he feels one, and he knows the moment to cut free is passing. He looks north to the Bosporan lands where his name still buys time, and he orders the march that will test the last loyal miles of his kingdom. North opens with wide grass and iron weather. The king rides into the Bosporan towns with a guard that still rides like a single mind. He holds court in a hall that smells of tar and hides. On the table lies a map stitched from scraps and corrected by men with scars on their wrists. He traces a line along the shore where ice loosens late, and trade begins early. He names rivers to ford, valleys to avoid, clans to bribe, and markets to raid. He speaks of seizing ships that wait for spring and of teaching new crews the old tricks of fog and current. Heads nod because plans feel like safety. Then the room learns a different lesson. A son stands where a son should stand and says he will save the kingdom by saving it from its king. Doors do not slam. They are easy shut. Guards do not shout. They look at one another as if waiting for a signal only they can hear. The king's hand rests on the map. He does not pull it back. He asks the son to speak again, and the son says the same words with more air around them. Outside the hall, the wind drops and the silence grows loud. By nightfall, some captains swear to pharnacies and some pretend to sleep. The plan on the table is still clever. It no longer has enough hands to lift it. Messengers leave by side doors with faces that show neither fear nor joy. Fires in the yard burn lower than they should. He walks the line of horses and counts aloud to calm them and to calm himself. He knows how quickly a kingdom can turn to echo. In the morning, the echo answers only to the name of his son. Morning finds him upright in a chair carved with knife scores and rings. He drinks from a cup that would fold another man at the first mouthful. His hand does not shake, and his breath does not shorten. The habit that saved him now refuses to release him. He laughs once without humor. He calls for the one guard whose face still settles the room and speaks a command too soft for the corridor. Steel answers where poison refuses. Somewhere far away, a clerk adds a line to a ledger and cannot say why his fingers fumble the wax. In a forum, a creditor looks up from his accounts and smiles at an empty step. In a port, a woman asks if the wind has changed because the smoke shifts in a way it has not in years. The body rests and the rumor travels. It travels faster than horses, faster than sail, because men love to repeat the end of a thing that frightened them. By night, the story has many versions, and by the next night, those versions all agree on points that no one present heard. The king leaves the room he entered as a boy with his jaw set. He leaves it carried by men who do not meet one another's eyes. The guard who obeyed him washes the blade in a basin that clouds and clears. He says a prayer he learned from a mother who kept it for death in winter. Then he saddles a fresh horse because the story will need a witness who can still ride through snow and speak without tears. News runs faster than salt horses and steadier than river barges. Statues come down and names are struck from tablets. Seals melt and are stamped again. Roads take on fresh numbers that point toward Rome. New governors arrive and speak about order with voices that carry over markets. In the Black Sea towns, old men still point at headlands and tell boys how a king read fog like scripture and made fleets lose their place on the water. In alleys where plaster holds the memory of fires, traders quote prices from the seasons when coin was Pontic and guards were local men with local mothers. In shrines where sailors leave little coils of rope, prayers still ask for the stubborn luck the king was said to share. Rome calls it pacification. The people who live there call it quieter. They work, and they pay, and they do not forget. The legend does not argue with the record. It sits beside it and looks at the same years from another chair. The empire that swallowed his borders could not swallow his example. Young rulers hear the story and learn two lessons: how long a nerve can hold. If you enjoyed this, I am going to be posting a lot here. I would greatly appreciate it if you could subscribe. That is a wrap from Empire's History Tales. Glad you stopped by. See you next time.